Indonesia, the working people have decided to rise up, not just against the establishment, but also against the politicians. And this is what I've been talking about, folks. When you know what the common enemy is, the common enemy most of the time is not going to be your neighbor. The common enemy is going to be the establishment and the politicians who support the establishment policies and fill their own pockets. Right now, Indonesia is having a cost of living movement. And this is what we've been asking for, a cost of living movement. People rising up and saying, hell to the no. There are more of us than there are of you. Now, I think that Occupy Wall Street had the right idea, had the right message. And that's something I wish that was not crushed by Obama, that was under the Obama administration. They really did have the right message. But I think looking back on Occupy Wall Street, I think we needed more people that were, not just the college kids, like that type of thing, or those who were college educated. I think you needed more people from the lower income communities to really send that message as well. But they were on the right path. And Indonesia, the people in Indonesia are not backing down, and they have some things to say, and they took it to the streets. Let's go ahead and get into this first clip here from one. I haven't shown one on here in a while. Indonesian protesters, they set the parliament building on fire. Now, we do not advocate for setting things on fire. I do not advocate for violence, but this is what happens, ladies and gentlemen, when people hit rock bottom and they've had enough, when they have sat there and they have decided we are going to try to go along with the politicians. We're going to hope that they do the right thing for the working class people, and they don't. They have had it. And here we go.
Focus, at least 3 people have died and several have been injured in Indonesia after protesters set fire to a regional parliament building. Demonstrations in the country over the massive perks given to lawmakers and later the killing of a cab share driver have turned into the first big tests for the President Prabowo Subianto's government. Take a look at these visuals for more.
Yeah, this is what happens when I told you they have had enough. It kind of reminds me of the protest that happened in Sri Lanka when the working class people in Sri Lanka rose up against the prime minister there, and they drove him out of his house. He ran out of the house, got on a plane and left, right? So this is some type of a form of revolution. Now, again, like I said before, we do not advocate for people to go set things on fire. I do not advocate for people to, bring about violence. I think we should have a movement in this country for the rest of us, those of us that are the 99%. And I think there's strategic ways that we can go about doing that so that this doesn't happen where people are killed. Because the thing that did happen with this fire at the parliament building is that 3 people were killed because they were trapped inside. Yeah. Yeah, so you guys get the idea. So that's where that all began. There was that parliament fire that happened in Indonesia. And I want to get into what some of the students have been saying who have been protesting in front of the parliament building as well. I want you guys to see this. People are they're done.
The Indonesian capital of Jakarta is on the edge. Hundreds of students are protesting in front of the parliament buildings, and they are demanding action against lawmakers' perks and police brutality. The protesters, in fact, feel their concerns were not adequately addressed despite meeting with members of the House of Representatives. Shouting slogans and also raising banners, they've denounced recent government actions, demanding concrete steps and meaningful dialogue.
We don't want the House of Representatives to just invite us to calm the situation. We want concrete actions that benefit all Indonesians. Although I attended a hearing with them yesterday, we're still unsatisfied. We believe there are many changes that need to be made. As long as our voices aren't heard, we'll keep speaking out and conveying our aspirations.
Because this isn't just happening in Jakarta, it's also in Sumatra, Sulawesi, and Papua. Authorities are posting only apology videos on social media, which is not enough. Some of our friends met with parliament members, but it's clear their concerns haven't been adequately addressed. We need to keep pushing for real change.
We're going to pause here for a second. Did you pay attention to what he just said? He said that some of them met with parliament members, but there has not been any real change. And then I think about what is happening here in the United States. I think about how activists and, other supporters of, like, I would say, like, maybe some of the DSA like members as well, have met with politicians and have been begging and pleading, please do something for the working class. I can't pay my rent. I have enormous amount of medical debt. We are plagued with student loan debt. And let's say you're not in that category. Well, then there's the issue of, I have been working my ass off for all these years and I can't put a down payment to save my life to buy a home because the prices are too high, right? I am living paycheck to paycheck, which a lot of people in this country are. We just are struggling. We can't get by. You add on top of that the tariffs, you add on top of that inflation, and that the cost of living continues to increase, and our wages have not adjusted for inflation. This is why, and I've said this before, when people say you have to be nice to the politicians if you want them to do something for you, I highly disagree with that, because we have been nice for too long. That's part of the reason why we got here. We have been asking them in a nice way to stop a genocide. We have been asking them in a nice way to help the people have health care in this country, but they continue to take money from big pharma. We have been asking them for a long time, stop private equity from buying these single family homes and increasing the prices so that we can afford to buy a home and actually achieve the American dream. But they are bought and paid for by the corporations and the military industrial complex. So it doesn't matter how nice we've been to them. It doesn't matter how many times people show up and they sit in at these town halls that are hosted by politicians who support those policies. It does not matter. At the end of the day, both of the parties are corrupt and corporate, and that is how they have been for at least my whole life. Now, people tell me about a time where the Democratic Party was doing things for the working people, where the Democratic Party was the party of the working class. I've read about it. I've been told about it. But the reality is that didn't happen during my lifetime at all. And if you're a millennial like me, you understand where I'm coming from. Gen Z, you understand where I'm coming from. And don't get it twisted, because there are even some people who are baby boomers who are also struggling. You know what a lot of them are struggling with? Also healthcare. People come to this conclusion. They think that because you're on Medicare, that you don't have these extra expenses. Remember, even with Medicare, they cover 80%. So you have more boomers who are going back to work. You have people who are past retirement age that are going back to work. You see them as greeters at Walmart. You see them here, at least at the gas stations. A lot of the people that are working the counter at the gas stations, they got to be at least over 65, and one lady in particular I know was in her 70s. The politicians have not been working for the working class people. The politicians are corrupt. And so it seems to be what has happened in Indonesia is that the majority, the working class people, they started to realize, wait a minute, a lot of these people that are in parliament, they're making 3 times what the rest of us are making. They're the ones making the laws, but they're not making any laws that are benefiting the working class. So they tried it the nice way. They tried it by, let's vote for this person. Let's vote for that person. Let's vote for this person. This politician is going to be the one to make the change, going to be the one to fix things. And what they found over the years is that is not the case. So as you see, what that guy said is that they already have been trying to speak to parliamentarian officials, and nothing has changed. Nothing has improved.
What's being said lacks certainty. Moving forward, as students, we want to fight for one key thing: protecting the people's sovereignty, no matter who's in power.
Siapa penguasa hari ini, kami hanya ingin memutus satu hal,
The protests began in Jakarta last week, rocking the world's third largest democracy, and have ever since escalated nationwide. A police vehicle hit and killed a motorcycle taxi driver on the 28th of August, fueling further unrest. The rights groups report 10 deaths in the protests, which have also sparked looting and rioting. The protests have forced President Prabowo Subianto to revoke some perks for the lawmakers. He's ordered for a full investigation into the incident and is vowed to take action against the rioters and the looters. For all the latest news, download the Yvonne app and subscribe.
Okay. Now, I want to show you something else about how they got there, because I think this is important as well. What is fueling the protest in Indonesia, and why now? So let me go ahead and get into this part here. I just want to get to the part where she breaks it down a little bit, because I think that's important. Okay, so her name is Elverina, and she is from the South China Morning Post. Listen to what she's saying.
Of living and lack of jobs in Indonesia.
Go back a little bit more.
Being frustrated by the high cost of living and lack of jobs in Indonesia. The country currently has the highest unemployment rate among ASEAN nations. More than 7 million people are without work. To add to this, many people have become outraged over what they perceive as excessive pay and perks for Indonesia's members of parliament.
Did you hear what she just said? Over 7 million people without jobs. So the job issue is a big part of this. And I'm bringing this up because, like I said, that jobs report was just released and it does not look good. Especially if you're Black, it does not look good for you at all. If you're in manufacturing, does not look good. When there is a lack of jobs, when people can't find work and they're already struggling, and you are having serious class warfare that is happening, what do you think the response is going to be? Meanwhile, you have politicians in parliament, like I said, from what I read, they are making 3 times what the average Indonesian is making. So the politicians are getting paid just like the politicians here in the United States are getting paid. People look at their salary and they say, well, a congress member only makes $160,000, or I think $165,000 a year or whatever. That's one part of their pay. Don't forget, they are also paid for speaking engagements. They are paid with the book deals. And I think a lot of them do have book deals. I think you only have to be there for at least 4 or 5 years to get a book deal. Don't forget, if you're there for 5 years, you get a lifetime pension. I mean, most of you don't get a pension. But there are most of you that have worked for the same company like for years, 10, 15, 20 years, and you don't get a pension. They have gold-plated healthcare, but some of you are trying to figure out how you're going to pay for your medical bill with insurance. So there is a class difference. So for the people who just point out that base salary that they make, they're not being serious. You can look at a senator like Joe Manchin, for example, who is very rich. Nancy Pelosi, very rich. You think they just got rich because they saved $165,000 a year? No. A lot of these people are loaded. And meanwhile, you got 99% of us just trying to figure out how we're going to make things happen, how we're going to get things done. And they cater to the billionaires. They cater to the donor class, the people who are doing just fine, while they increase prices on the rest of us, while they tell us, don't you dare ask for healthcare, that's socialism, but they sit up here and support and fund a country that has universal healthcare for everybody, and that's Israel. So apparently they're totally fine with them having it, but they don't want you to have it. And they're giving the money to it, giving the money so they continue to have these things. The class consciousness has woken up in Indonesia. That's how you get to this point. because they've tried everything else. Let's go forward a little bit more here. I'm trying to make sure we get to the parliament part. Here we go. Okay.
Earn more than $6,150 a month. That's about 30 times more than the average worker.
30 times, excuse me, not 3 times, 30 times. Let's go back to that dollar amount. That's important. The lawmakers earn more than $6,150 a month. Some of you don't make that. Many of you watching probably don't make that.
Earn more than $6,150 a month. That's about 30 times more than the average worker.
30 times.
Their housing allowance alone is $3,030 per month.
So if the housing is over $3,000 a month and they're not making that $6,000, let's say they're making $4,000 a month. Hell, I know people with college degrees that don't make $4,000 a month, believe it or not. That's another misunderstanding here in the United States. I think a lot of times people assume that because you have a college degree, you're making a lot of money. Not necessarily. There are a lot of people with college degrees that are working at Starbucks because that's the job that they could get, and Starbucks gives benefits. I kid you not. These administrative assistants, a lot of them that you see, you'd be surprised to see how much they actually make. I was an administrative assistant. That was one of my first jobs out of college. I was making $11 an hour. So just because someone has a college degree doesn't mean they're making a lot of money. So let's say in Indonesia, let's say you live there and you're making $4,500 a month, right? But the housing alone, the housing allowance is $3,000 per month. So the parliament people, they get a housing allowance of $3,000 a month. On top of that, they're making $6,000 a month. But nobody else is getting a housing allowance. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I mean when I'm talking about the inequality, the class issue here. That's insane. If they're making $6,000 a month, why are they also getting a housing allowance on top of that? Meanwhile, the working class people there, they don't get a housing allowance and they're not making $6,000 a month. They just told you they're making 30 times what the average Indonesian person is making. Insane.
Per month, which is more than 3 times the average rent for a 3-bedroom flat in the center of the capital, Jakarta. Indonesia's House of Representatives has 580 members. So the money allocated for their allowances has contributed to driving up Indonesia's national budget, which is paid for by a range of tax hikes that critics say further squeeze the wallets of the working class.
Does that sound familiar? So the budget has increased, and the way that they're paying for it is by making the working class people pay higher taxes. I mean, you see these politicians, Donald Trump right now, let's give tax breaks to the rich. Let's give tax breaks to the billionaires, my billionaire buddies. Why are you giving them tax breaks? The rest of us aren't getting tax breaks. So does that sound familiar? This is happening globally, guys. It's not just the United States. They are squeezing the life out of the working class people so that those who are at the top can have luxury, a life of luxury. That is absolutely insane. Insane. And no one deserves it. We all deserve better, and we can have better. And that's what I want people to realize. That's what we can learn from the Indonesia protest. Again, don't go out there setting things on fire. Don't go out there being violent. I'm saying that again. Because people like to take things and be like, oh, she said, no. Don't go out there and doing that. But we need to have a massive movement in this country to challenge the establishment, the billionaire class. And until we have that, these politicians are only going to continue, if they give you anything, to give you crumbs. And they know it. The politicians, they know who's really running the show. They're not going to tell you that. But they know who's really running the show because those same people are running them. And they don't want to give up their own life of luxury. That's why they go along with it. They get comfortable. They get used to, I don't know, having a nice fancy loft in DC and also having a giant house in their home state. They get used to the lobster dinners, the book tours, the TV appearances, having a driver while everybody else is taking public transportation. They get used to that lifestyle, and that's what they want to keep.
The budget for MPs surged from around 340 million US dollars in 2021 to 406 million US dollars this year. So while costs for these MPs have gone up, there is a lot of controversy over their legislative output. One example is their revisions to Indonesia's military law, which allocated more civilian posts for military officers. Another is the meetings they held in closed-door sessions at a luxury hotel over a weekend. MPs also passed a job creation law that opponents have criticized as eroding the rights of workers and indigenous people.
What do you know? Taking away the rights from the workers and the indigenous people. Sound familiar? So there's a lot that goes into this, ladies and gentlemen, but I think you can look towards what is happening in Indonesia and you see the people rose up. I said the same thing about Sri Lanka as well. The working poor and the working class in Sri Lanka got really tired of the prime minister living in luxury while the rest of them were just scraping by. So they rose up in the streets and they said, oh, hell to the no. Something has to change. Apparently that did something because the prime minister left his house, got on a plane and peaced out. He was afraid of the people. They're really afraid of you, the 99%. But here's the thing. They feel as though as long as we realize or pretend that we don't have any power, they have nothing to worry about. The moment more people get on board with this and stop focusing on, I'm on team red, I'm on team blue, and more people start focusing on who is at the tippity top and who is getting like these cutbacks and who is really exploiting the people, then they will really not just fear you, then they will become worried. Then they will have that worry. And that will include everybody, right? That doesn't just mean people who are restaurant workers. That doesn't just mean people working in retail. It doesn't just mean people who are college students. That also means, and if you're in this profession, you need to listen to this. That also means that if you are in law enforcement and that day comes, you're going to have to take a side. And the side should be with the people who are out there fighting the 99% because you ain't at the top either. The problem is the people who are at the top, they count on law enforcement to keep things at bay for them. They militarize the police to come in and push back against the 99% and tell you to calm down, even though they're a part of the 99% as well. So they establish a police state to stop you from having a class warfare. So for the police officers who are out there, when that day comes, and I think this day will come because the economy is not getting better, it's getting worse. I think eventually one day it will come. I don't know if it'll happen, in my lifetime, but I think that one day we are going to see a class uprising in this country. And if you're a police officer at that point in time, you need to make sure you're on the right side. And the right side is with the 99%, because guess what? They can dispose of you too. Pay attention to what's happening to Indonesia, ladies and gentlemen. It's a big story. I think it needs more attention. And I continue to hope that more people can mobilize, even if it's not, whether it's 11 demands or some other demands. But at some point, we're going to have a class movement in this country to push back against the billionaire class. Will you be there? Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.